Welcome to Spectral Shadows, where the darkness whispers and the unseen lurks. Tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it? Because horror feels different at night, especially when you're alone. Those who love their mother, like, share, and comment. Subscribe, if you dare. Now turn off the lights, and let's begin. Story number 1. It's hard to know where to begin with something like this. Start at the beginning. Well, yeah, no shit, that's obvious. But how do you know where the beginning is? Life isn't neat. It isn't broken down into little plots with defined starts and ends. It's one big mess of choices and coincidences that merge and weave together to make what is normally a very boring story. So I'll preface this by giving you what you need to know about me. I'm not smart. Ask anyone who knows me. These days they'll say I'm reliable, responsible, personable, and lots of other ibles and ables that mean nothing. But I've been very stupid at times, made some very dumb mistakes and choices that I still pay for. But I'd say nearly everyone has at some point. So, second, I want you to know I'm not a bad guy. To say I'm a good man would be a stretch, I'll agree. But I'm not cruel or unkind, or even particularly hateful. I don't even hate my mother, however much she might deserve it. Anyways, here goes. My roommate is normal. That might not sound bad. Almost sounds like a compliment even. But it's terrifying. He's just left. Gone to do something. I really couldn't say. But it feels like when you're in the deep end of the pool and come up for air, or when you've been lost in the woods for hours and just found a trail you recognize. It's that kind of relief. And all because this guy is seriously screwing with me. Somehow no one even notices him. He just blends in, and yet he's ruining my life. Let me rewind to this particular story's beginning, as all stories probably should, except the super weird or time travel related. It was summer, a month or so ago. I had just been promoted to a full-time job, assistant manager of a Whataburger. I was hoping to finally follow in my big sister's tiny shoes and find a place of my own, moving out of her spare room. I live in a pretty big city, not Austin or Dallas or anything, but big enough rent is pretty crazy if you want your own pad that isn't in a ghetto or between two crack dens. I found the perfect place, about a 20-minute drive from my Whataburger. Not too central, but central. Enough. $770 a month. 2 bedrooms. I could survive, just. But in the long term, I'd need a roommate. Going halves on that, and I'd be able to save, invest, that sort of shit. So I hit up social media, tried to find someone to fill my gap. Didn't take all that long, maybe a week or 2, screening out the weirdos. My sis helped me vet the guy. His name was Mike, 26, same as me. Worked an entry-level white-collar type office job somewhere in the city. Typical hobbies, didn't smoke, drink, or do drugs, which was good for me. We decided to meet him. My sis, Jen, came towards the end of my shift. It was nearly 3 in the afternoon, so plenty quiet, and we mostly just shot the shit while I wiped a few tables and looked busy. Not that the main manager was in. Then he came. I'd said, I finish at 3, so maybe come round then, and I could swear. The moment that the clock struck 3, he came through the doors. We recognized him from the app we'd found him on. I can't remember what exactly it was now. Either way, Neither of us found anything odd then, when we first met Mike. He was civil, good posture, fairly well-spoken, with a normal smile set in a normal face. "What did you think?" I asked Jen. She'd shrugged. "Better than a crackhead. Dude seems normal. What did he say he does for fun again?" I couldn't remember then, and I sure as hell have no idea now. He only walked out maybe 10 minutes ago, but if you ask me for the specifics, I think I'd struggle. He had one of those faces, like an extra from an old TV show, the kind of guy who's there somewhere in every episode, but you never even notice until someone points them out. He just blends in. He isn't ugly, and he isn't handsome. He has no notable scars or marks, and if you put a gun to my head and really forced me, I'd guess his hair and eyes were brownish. But I wouldn't want to be in a position where I'd stake my life on it. For the first week or so, he was great. Well, average. He normally cleaned up after himself, okay, and wasn't too loud. We didn't really talk, didn't hang out at all. He just didn't seem the type. He had his life and I had mine. Or so I thought. My job involves some pretty long hours. The head manager of my restaurant is also the franchisee, Mr. Dixon, or Dick, as we all call him. He takes what he calls a hands-off approach. That means he's basically never in, and I'm stuck doing almost everything. Some days I work as long as 12 hours. I don't mind, though. It keeps my mind off things, and the overtime pay is pretty sweet. Most mornings Dick'll stick his head, and its many chins, in the door, and say, "Something's come up. I gotta go downtown. You got this, champ." "Sure," I'll say. Good man, keep this up and you'll go far." And that'll be the last I see of him. Sometimes he might turn up at close, grab a Diet Dr. Pepper, and sit there sucking at it while we shoot the shit and I sort the kitchen. On a Saturday night, he might occasionally take me to some bar, catch a game or something. He always pays too. I don't mind. I kinda like the responsibility. If you've never worked in fast food, it's pretty tiring physically. You're on your feet all day, keeping track of 100 things at once. As a manager, I should probably be doing more. Well, managing. But invariably at least one or two of the high school stoners we employ won't show. So I have to jump on the grill. It's fine. Makes me tired enough I can just go home and collapse at the end of the day and don't have to think about anything too hard. If I'm not working on Sunday, I might get out my battered old Honda Civic and visit my sister. She's got a good job, receptionist at a fancy golf club about an hour south of town. We don't talk to our parents much. Not anymore. It's always been us against the world. When I was younger, a lot of my friends never really understood how I could be so close to Jen. I heard all sorts of horror stories about siblings fighting constantly, stealing pocket money from each other, spreading each other's secrets all over school, that sort of thing. I never got it. My big sis was always the only person I could rely on. I wish she were here now. Everything changed a couple of days ago. It was a pretty normal Saturday. I left around 7 a.m., and Mike was already up, sitting in the living room, eyes fixed on the TV, facing away from me. "I'm heading out," I said as I passed through. "I'll be here." He replied, as always. It was after the lunch rush had been and gone, and I was sitting pretty behind the counter, talking with one of our new hires. The moment the clock struck 3, there Mike was. I don't think I even heard the door open. It was a weird feeling. One moment I'm talking with this kid. He's telling me he's saving for a car, and everything feels normal. Then there was this pressure, this feeling, like the entire world is watching me. I cut myself off. felt my hair on my arms rise, and there was this embarrassment, a gut-wrenching sensation, like when your parents have found your weed stash, and you know you're about to have all your secrets laid bare. I turned, and there he was. Cargo shorts, white t-shirt, looking for all the world like the most average customer you could have. And he was staring at me hard, so I pushed down that feeling, greeted him as warmly as I could muster, being that he is my roommate, and took his order. He did nothing, and it was the most intense moment of my life. He ordered normally, a double meat meal. The kitchen beeped, and employees moved around me, and I was stuck, trapped like a deer in the headlights as my roommate continued to stare at me. A cold sweat ran down my face and arms, and I blurted out the rest of my lines, telling him to wait by the side, but I'm pretty sure I jumbled it all up. The beeps from the kitchen drowned out everything but the blood rushing in my head. He moved over, though, never taking his eyes off me. I was shaking as I packed up his box, keeping my head down, looking only into the sauce trays under the counter. I couldn't bring myself to ask which he wanted, so I just threw a few of each in. Dick would kill me if he was there. I was feeling dizzy, lightheaded, borderline nauseous as I handed over the box. I didn't want to look, really didn't, but I couldn't stop myself, and I took a quick glance into his normal face. His eyes burned and scalded my soul. That embarrassment returned 100 times stronger, and those night terrors you have about being naked at school felt like nothing in comparison. It was as if he could see every secret, every part of my being, laid out like a dissected animal. My heart beat so loudly in my ears, even the kitchen beeps fell away, and for a second I felt like I was gonna throw up, or pass out, or something. I'd never felt anything like it, never felt so known, so judged. Just as I could take no more, he thanked me for his meal, and he left. My shirt was stuck to me, even with the AC on full blast. I had to run to the bathroom, and I probably sat there for 10 minutes once I was done, just waiting for the shaking to subside. When I came out, I went over to the kid who'd been at the counter with me. Hey, you good, man?" he said, giving me an odd look. Sure, why?" He shrugged and made a face. "You look kinda rough, dude. You sick?" I shook my head, trying to place a reassuring smile on my face that probably came out as a grimace. "All good. Just a little hot in here, don't you think?" The employee made a noise that could have meant anything. "Anyways," I started, "that guy who came in just now, he seemed kinda off to you." "Huh?" He looked perplexed. "Which guy?" I tried to recall anything visually that stuck out about him, but it was like trying to find words to describe the taste of water. That guy just now, cargo shorts, white tee. "You were right here with me, man," I said, trying to keep the edged desperation out of my voice. The employee's eyes flicked with recognition. "Oh, that guy? Nah, man, he seemed normal. I barely even noticed him. Why?" I struggled to find anything to reply with. Dunno, he was almost like too normal, you know? The new hire just looked puzzled. Sure, I guess." I dropped it real quick. It's like I say, my roommate is just normal. It's a weird paradox. He's so normal no one even seems to notice him. But like, that just makes him too normal. It was that effect he had on me. I'd never seen it before. At home, all he really did when he wasn't in his room was maybe watch TV or eat something. Before now, I don't think he ever really looked my way at all. In fact, now that I think about it, he almost blended in with the beige wallpaper and the gray couch. I couldn't say I'd ever even taken notice before. He was like a lamp, or an unused chair that happened to pay half the rent. By the end of my shift, around 10 that night, I was still feeling pretty shaken. In fact, I wasn't feeling like going home. He was always in bed around midnight, so when Dick turned up and hit me with that coming to the bar sport, I said, "Sure." I'm sure you know the kind of bar it was. Faux wood paneling on the walls, tacky neon signs, pool tables with ripped-up felt, floor always slightly sticky, and Creed blaring on the jukebox. A real dive. The sort of place Dick seemed to like for some reason. Couldn't ever figure out why. He had money, lots of it. But he seemed to like the dreary miasma of run-down bars. Dick was spilling over his stool, gulping at his bud, and I was nursing mine over the bar. So anyways, he goes on, "I always wonder how you manage to stay thin. I mean, shit, you built like a crackhead." That elicited an ironic smile from me. "Just genes, I guess, man." That got a chuckle out of the big man. Well, shit, I don't remember the last time I fit in a pair of jeans. I laughed along with him, but today's encounter was eating at me, and a few beers had done a lot to loosen me up. "Hey, look, Dick," I began, struggling to find what to say. I had a really weird customer today. Kind of freaked me out. Dick's glazed expression snapped serious. "Was it that damn tweaker who's always on 16th and Dallas?" I told him that fuck he wasn't welcome since his last OD in the shitter. No, it wasn't a tweaker. It was this guy. He was like normal. Too normal, you know? No. Can't say I do. I kept pressing, though what answer I wanted I didn't know. He looked normal as hell, but he stared at me. It was super intense, like he could see into my fucking soul. But Dick's eyes were glazing over as he sank what was left of his beer. I remember when the ladies gave me that kind of look. Maybe he had a little crush on you. And he started giggling. I came back to my senses a few hours later, maybe 2 a.m. I was staggering back towards the apartment. I say that. I was still drunk. Just this part I can remember. I assume I'd shared Dick's Uber and was only about a block away from the apartment. The world was spinning, and I was trying to keep upright whilst shuffling in vaguely the right direction. I don't drink much anymore, not more than 2 beers usually, but today had shaken me, and I'd pounced on that warm feeling that booze gives you, like everything's gonna be fine, and damn whatever comes tomorrow. Tomorrow hit me hard as I rounded the corner. 1 minute I was in the reassuring embrace of a drunken stupor. Then I was standing stone-cold sober, looking at the unsuspecting 2-story building that was my home. It was cold, I realized, despite my jacket. Yet the sweat came anyway. There was some sense, something prehistoric, primordial. I knew I was prey, being stalked, watched by the ultimate predator, and I knew there was nothing I could do in the face of such overwhelming power. He was watching me, my roommate. He was standing at the window, having been standing there for hours. I couldn't see him, not from this far, but I felt it with utter certainty. The adrenaline was flowing. I could feel my heart banging in my chest, and I took a step forward, and another. I was drawn in. What the hell else could I do? It was 2 a.m., and that was my home. Slowly I kept moving forward, every atom of my being the sole focus of that presence I felt watching me. There was that small, logical voice in my mind. I'm surprised it was still there. Thought it had died off long ago, absent as logic was from nearly all my prior decisions. But still, a part of me said there was nothing to fear. It's just a guy, a normal mortal man with a weird stare. Now, as I said, I've been plenty stupid in the past. I know what it's like to drive yourself into paranoia. Some part of me wondered, as I staggered down the street, if I was just freaking out, if maybe I'd had something other than beer and shots, if I was high. But I knew I wasn't, and I know I was right to be afraid. I didn't look up at the second-floor window when I approached. I didn't want him to know I was scared, but I could feel his gaze beating down on like the summer sun. Could almost feel it singe my flesh. I shuddered, but then I moved around from that side of the building, and his presence left me towards the worn steel stairs. Ascending them, caged by solid steel that rang underfoot, I felt safer. Next came the door, a plain white door, marked with a 3B in plain black. I stood there, the automatic light throwing a sulphurous orange glow about me, and in the middle of the door, beneath the plain, glossy number, was the peephole. I couldn't tell you how long I stood, poised with the key, looking into the beady little hole. It might have been 2 minutes, might have been 2 hours. In some way, it was worse than the certainty of knowing he was watching. Maybe he was on the other side, watching my warped form, or maybe he was already asleep. Standing there, adrenaline leaching from my system, probably still way too drunk, I made the decision, unlocked the door, and entered. The apartment was almost as I'd left it that morning. TV and PS4 were in their place. The fan had been left on, a jumble of wires, chargers, and the router sat on their little end table. Gray couch with miscellaneous stains. Fridge covered in tacky magnets from Jen's trips and old receipts. Everything was normal, except the window. The window was open. The curtains billowed lethargically in the night's breeze. I stepped up to it, and putting my hands on the sill, I could look out and see exactly where I'd rounded the corner and felt his gaze. I could look and see how I would have been spotlighted by the street lamp. I felt my skin crawl, and I turned to look at my roommate's door. It was closed and hopefully locked. The apartment was still. He either wasn't here anymore, or else was asleep. The day was starting to catch up with me, and all the tension and adrenaline had been draining since I came in. I felt unsteady as I closed the window, drew the curtains, staggered through to my room, closed and locked the door as gently as I could, pushing the deadbolt home as quietly as I could manage. Then I collapsed on the bed. The next morning, I awoke, sticky, reeking, with a miserable pounding in my head and a mouth that tasted like crap. I'd passed out without turning on my AC, and the hot Texan morning was doing a number on me. I dragged myself from the salt-crusted puddle I'd left, having taken my clothes off at some point in the night. A glance at my phone told me it was 11:49, and I had 2% battery left. Shit, I thought. I put the thing onto charge and crawled through to my bathroom. Luckily, both rooms had their own. though I wasn't thinking about my roommate just then. I quickly showered, rinsing away the grime of the stifling night and pissing while I was in there. A quick brush of the teeth, and I felt somewhat more normal. Clothes on, I closed my hands around my door handle, determined to make some coffee and start my morning, when yesterday hit me. In a flash, the encounter at the Whataburger and him watching me stagger home. In an instant I felt scared again, scared and angry. What the hell was I so afraid of? In the cold light of day, with an aggressive hangover and things to do, it seemed silly to be terrified of my own damn roommate. I unlocked the door with viciousness and grabbed my keys and wallet. As I stepped out, I was greeted with blaring laughter. From the TV, Mike was there, facing away, ostensibly watching an old repeat of The Big Bang Theory. His back was straight, unnaturally so. He sat stiff and immobile. Some character quipped, and the laugh track erupted, but my roommate wasn't laughing. He was statue-like. My roommate, unflinching as the laughter went on, sitting still as a taxidermy, not looking back at me. I could barely bring myself to speak. "Hey," I got out. "Yes," he said, and for the first time it struck me how flat his voice was. Not even emotionless, but flat. As if someone had taken a recording and screwed with the levels and balancing and left a voice devoid of anything. My mouth moved, and no sound came out. Some big punchline went off on the TV, and the laugh track howled and shrieked, and my roommate didn't move or make a sound. "Look." I got out. "I'm going out for the day." The hollow voice came back. "I'll be here." That was what he always said, and for the first time it registered in my brain, not as a friendly affirmative, but as a threat. I all but ran out the apartment. I was in my shitbox Honda, and halfway down the street before I realized that I'd forgotten my phone. I was half tempted to turn around, but decided I wouldn't need it. As I was driving, I realized I was still really pretty drunk, so I stopped for an early lunch at a Burger King. Nothing good, just a double Whopper with cheese. I felt that a big slab of meat and bread, like that, plus a crappy coffee, might help me sober up. Whether it helped or not, I don't know. I didn't crash on my way to Jen's place, at least. Once I'd arrived, it was hard to knock normally, rather than bashing the shit out of the door. But I restrained myself. Now I'm kind of a scrawny guy. Tall, but thin, built, as Dick said, like a crackhead. My sister is quite the opposite. Short, a bit chunky, and covered in tattoos. I said hey, trying not to look too insane when she opened the door. "Hey, yourself. You could have called." She started. I smiled and shrugged. "Forgot my phone. Had a crazy morning." "Right. You coming in? Sue won't be home for a few hours anyway." I nodded and followed her in. It was nice. Jen's apartment. Far nicer now that I'd moved out. White, modern, minimalist. Besides, for the amp and cables strewn across the floor, with a big kitchen and a huge TV we'd both pitched in for. "How's the spare room coming on?" I asked, trying to seem casual as I poked my head into the room I'd lived in since I was 17. It was bare and empty, all my crappy posters and other crap I'd left long gone. That hurt a little, like my sister had ripped a part of me out of her life. Not that I could blame her. "It's coming. It'll be cool to have an office," she said, coming over to peer in besides me. I nodded. "Yeah, I'm sure. Jen is more the creative type than me. Her and Sue wanted a place to work on her music for ages. It's just a hobby, really. But she's always talking about it, and she always needed a special place to work properly. Back in high school, she never did any homework until our dad set up a little study area in a spare room. So, she said, "What's this visit all about?" I sighed hard, crossing my arms as I threw myself on her couch. I sat for a moment, biting my lip as I tried to think of something to say. There weren't any secrets between us, except maybe one of mine. But it was hard to frame it. It's my roommate. Oh, right. What's him name again? I hesitated. Mike, I think. Jen snorted. You think? Some roommate you are. Don't you talk with the guy? No. No. I looked at her, feeling embarrassment rising once again. I'm scared of him. Immediately her expression sobered. Why? He's not into drugs, is he? No, I started. No, it's not drugs. There's something real off about him. Off how? Jen pressed. Something we should tell the police? I shook my head. There's nothing to tell them. His behavior is just strange as hell. Was he jacking off in the living room? No. I took a breath. Look, I never speak to the guy, don't even notice him. But the other day he came into work and he stared at me. Jen looked unsure. Well, yeah, you live together. Not like that. He's scary, Jen. Terrifying. He came in and stared at me, like he could see into my soul. I watched her face fall at my words. I saw the pity in her eyes, that sudden hard edge of accusation. Are you on anything? She asked. My sister, my rock, and the one person I could trust. She thought I was having a relapse. It broke my heart. People do stupid things. It started in high school. My girlfriend at the time got into it through her older brother's friends, and I wanted her to think I was cool. Stupid shit. I won't go into it here. I've been clean for 5 years now, all thanks to Jen. But her reaction made it all come back. I talked longer. I explained as well as I could. Told her about last night, about this morning. Finally, she was coming around. And he wasn't laughing. He was just sitting there? She asked. Yeah. Well, it was the Big Bang Theory. I don't know anyone who laughs at that. I kept my frustration buried. Yeah, but he was completely emotionless, not moving, not blinking. Okay, I can see why you're freaking out a bit, she said. Thank you, I said sardonically. But what the hell should I do? She leaned back into the couch, looking sidelong at me. I guess I'll have to mediate. What do you mean? I mean, I'll talk to him. Figure out if he's got something against you, or why he's being so weird. She explained. Okay, Jen. Thanks. I'm glad you believe me. It was a weight off my chest, having my sister back on my side. She always was, even when my own parents threw me out. She'd done a lot for me, and here she was coming to my rescue again. It's isolating, going through things alone. Just having a single person to share these things with brought a sense of peace and security I'd been missing for a day. We'd been talking for nearly an hour at this point, and Jen agreed to come back with me, talk to my creepy-ass roommate, and help me sort all this shit out. I was standing, grabbing my keys off the kitchen counter, when I looked out the window. What the fuck? It slipped out of me, along with every shred of hope I'd gained since I left that morning. What? Said Jen, peeking around my elbow. He was there, the other side of the road, standing, watching. Jen tensed as she saw him. He isn't moving. she said, an edge creeping into her voice. Nope. Okay, wait here. I guess this makes it easier, Jen said as she slunk into her room, coming back out with her purse. Makes what easier? I asked, as she began digging through all the receipts and crap in her bag. Not laughing at shit sitcoms, I get. But no one stalks my little brother. She emerged from her bag with a spray bottle. I blinked. What's that? She rolled her eyes at me. Deodorant. Dipshit. She only called me that when she was super pissed. What do you think? It's fucking Mace. You're right. This guy's a fucking creep, following you out here, and now he knows where I live too. She gave me a look as she strode to the door. I'm sorry I ever doubted you, bro, she said. In that instant, a flicker of my old hope returned. At least I could always count on my sister. She stormed out the door in a fury, pepper spray in hand, shoulders set. She might be short, but she could be terrifying in her own way, at times. My roommate, however, didn't move. He just stood, rooted to the sidewalk, in front of the apartment block opposite, and he was still staring at me, not noticing 4'11" of protective older sibling marching toward him. She was right on him when he turned. It was slow. She was shouting, bringing up the spray can, when Mike began to speak. He turned and looked at Jen, and her shoulders fell. I couldn't hear them, not from in there. I had no idea what they were saying, but Jen seemed to fall inwards on herself. Together, she and my roommate turned, facing me. Mike kept speaking, and Jen looked down at her feet. He put a hand on her shoulder, almost reassuring. She dropped the can, and my gut dropped. With it, I have no idea what happened, what he said. But next thing I knew, Jen was coming back over. Mace picked back up. At the door, she stopped, and I saw the tears on her cheeks. Her voice wobbled. Get out. I couldn't understand. What? What's wrong with him? Is he gonna leap? Jen pointed the pepper spray in my face. Get the fuck out. Never talk to me again, or I'll call the fucking police. My mind raced, and I felt sick as she slammed the door on me. With nothing else to do, I looked about the street, but my roommate was gone. I was shaking, probably in shock as I walked by to my car. I was breathing hard. I didn't even know I was driving until I pulled into my parking spot, just as the sun was going down in a big splash of orange. What the hell did he tell Jen? What could he have told her? And why the fuck would Jen believe my weird roommate? I couldn't make sense of any it. I shut my eyes and pounded on my dashboard, probably making the cracks in it worse, but I didn't care. I tried to tell myself that it was an act, that Jen was doing something to get rid of Mike. I just needed to trust her. But part of me knew. There are mistakes I've made, ones I've only told Jen about, sure, and also one I've never told anyone. If my roommate somehow knew it, if that's what he told Jen. I could see that leading to her reaction, but I couldn't see how he could know, or why she'd ever believe him. I looked up at my apartment. He might already be back. Probably was, but I needed my phone at least. I figured that I might as well take all my crap, leave town for a few days, until this is sorted. I think I could sort shit out with Dick, not lose my job. Besides, I was gonna have to deal with Mike. I came up. He was here, standing in the kitchen with his back to me. It was like being in a room with a temperamental nuclear bomb. I felt so tense. I don't know if I was trying to sneak. That'd be pathetic, but I kept my breathing shallow and stepped as lightly as I could, across to my room. If anything, I think he kept turning, kept his back to me. As soon as my door was locked, I grabbed my gym bag and stuffed it full of every clean piece of clothing I could find. Then went toothpaste, toothbrush, deodorant. Then came a knock on my door. I froze, heart smacking my ribs. Then came his voice, still and terrible. "You want to leave." It wasn't a question. That wouldn't be a very smart choice. It continued. I wasn't sure what I could have done. No words came to mind, and everything was blank. There was nothing I could do but listen to that still, dispassionate, almost artificial voice. "You should have been honest with Jen years ago." I clenched my fists, my teeth, my whole body tightened against my will. "It weighs heavily," the voice stated, so very heavy. I felt hot, flushed, every muscle tensed as I sat and listened. "It's important to talk." There was nothing. I wanted more than to be somewhere else, anywhere. I almost considered diving through the window. "It would be best if you confessed." I shut my eyes, willing my roommate to leave, to give me a chance to get to my car. Then, "I will go, now. I have some things to see to, but I am very willing to listen when you return." The outer door slammed suddenly. I jumped, almost cried out, as all that tension suddenly bled away. I have no idea what the fuck he was talking about. He's been gone a while now, and I've finished packing my stuff. "I'm going to leave. Now get as far as I can tonight. Then I'll give Dick a call, sort out work. Looks like Jen's blocked me on everything. I guess I might have to go talk to my parents." Story number 2. I need your help. I don't normally post online about my real life. How much help can the internet be? It's just people screaming their opinions at each other. But I genuinely have no idea what to do in this situation. I'm a professional house sitter. Never used to know that was a thing, but friends I petitioned for recommended me to wealthy acquaintances, and a few testimonials later, I'm house-sitting these big McMansions. I usually show up the first day in a beige jacket over a black tee. Casual but classy. But once the owners are gone and I'm in charge, I switch into my laziest jeans or PJs, make myself an espresso with their fancy machine. They always have. Fun. And wander barefoot out to the deck overlooking the lake, and I open my arms wide and say something cheesy like, "Jeeves, fetch me the morning paper." Then I open my phone and play Wordle and fantasize that I actually live there and think about how next summer I'm going to refinish the deck. Basically, LARPing life as the 1%, but I always leave the place looking better than I found it, usually with a note about how I changed the flickering bulb or the CO2 detector battery or fixed the squeaky door. So, I get pretty good reviews. Never any problems until now. So, latest gig. Rich old white guy keeps referring to me as Gen Z. Bro, I'm a millennial. Prattles about investments and the market and asks about my golf game. I do not have a golf game. Like all poors, I play whatever is free at the park. Halfway through introductions, he remembers he hasn't told me his name yet and says, "I'm Gerald. My pronouns are she, her." Ha! Just kidding. Claps me on the back. Haha. You're so funny, Gerald. He gives me a tour of the house. Huge windows and hardwood floors and sliding doors leading out to the patio overlooking the shimmering lake. He even has an indoor swimming pool, I guess, for when the lake freezes over. The guest room where I'll be staying is the only bedroom on the main floor. I ask him why he needs a sitter since he's got no pets and is only gone for 3 days. He tells me it's for peace of mind. He's had break-ins recently. Speaking of which, he explains the fob system. For security, the doors auto-lock. So if you remove your fob and later go out to the patio, or leave and come back, you'll be locked out. Always wear your fob. I'm giving you my spare. Nifty, huh? He grins as he pulls on a gold chain around his neck to show me what looks like a turquoise amulet. The amulet is a stunning bit of jewelry that looks like he plucked it straight from King Tutankhamun's tomb. It's probably priceless and belongs in a museum, but when I ask if I can see it, he draws it back and tucks it under his shirt. Opie. Sorry, Zoomer. This thing is worth more than your life, haha. Yours is the discount version. He hands me a small silver chain with a fob set in the back of a similar amulet, but mine is just colored glass and cheesy plastic. Leave it in the crystal bowl near the entrance when you leave the last day. The doors will lock behind you. Discount version, specially made for poors. Sure, I say. Upstairs are bedrooms themed in different colors, a trophy room and a library. It's not exactly off limits, but he tells me I shouldn't have much reason to go up there. Then he says he does want to show me one thing. We troop up the ornate staircase with the carved banister, and he points to a door at the end of a long hallway. Like everything in the house, it is ornate, but rather than the modern style of the rest of the house, this door has a carved gold handle and plaques with relief sculpture around the frame, as if from an ancient tomb. Hell, that's probably exactly what it is. And it probably opens to his own personal museum of plundered artifacts. Gerald, unsurprisingly, tells me under no circumstances may I enter. I tell him he should just put a velvet rope up in front of it. After laughing way too loud at my joke, he says, "You might hear thumping. We have squirrels. I'll take care of them once I get back. Just don't worry about the noises." Gotcha. Pretty cushy job, right? He smiles as we return to the main floor. The hard part, for me, is finding someone trustworthy. Privacy is my main concern. Yep, understood. I won't go upstairs. You're probably tempted now that I've told you not to. Nope. Probably think, oh, he must have a dead body in there. Or something, huh? What I actually think is, wow, you are really making this weird, my dude. In the same way, it might be weird if I ordered a meat pie and was told, here you go, delicious pie. 100% beef, absolutely no fingers inside. Perhaps realizing his remarks sound sus, as this Zoomer would say, Gerald adds, just kidding, haha. Anyway, the first day, I arrive wearing my discount jewelry and do my usual checks, but it's all immaculate, nothing that needs fixing or cleaning, so I head out to the deck with a beer. Zoomer, open this bottle, I say, role-playing Gerald. My pronouns are fuck me, I add, as I crack it open and take a swig. Lol. I down a couple of bottles while watching the stars twinkle over the lake. As the sun fades and a chill sets in, I retreat indoors. Thump, thump, thump. The knocking is so loud that I drop my beer, swearing I clean up the sticky mess, my pulse hammering with each thump. Those are some big fucking squirrels, I think. I stand underneath the ceiling, below what I assume is the locked room and a squirrel hurling bowling balls. With a final, ominous thump, the noises cease. After a few tense minutes, I make a circuit of the house, just rechecking the security of everything for peace of mind. Aside from the occasional thumps upstairs, everything seems normal. I find a plush robe of Gerald's in the walk-in closet that is bigger than my entire apartment. I prance around in it for a while, lip-syncing to music booming through the house, eventually luxuriating in a bubble bath with some fancy chocolates he won't miss. The tub is the ostentatious centerpiece of the master bathroom, set on a raised platform in the middle of the room with gold-gilded mirrors along the walls, which I can only imagine Gerald looks into while airing out his wrinkly junk and saying things like, "My Gerald, what a snack you are." I'm still lounging in the tub when noise starts up from that door at the end of the hall. And even though it's a little ways down, I have pretty sensitive hearing, and I notice thud, thud, thud. The noise this time is less like pounding or thumping, and more like footsteps. Fuck, no, I whisper, like someone walking around in that room just beyond the door. I lean out and call, "Hello?" The footsteps cease. Every hair on my neck stands on end. For a few minutes, I stay in the tub. But when the steps start up again, thud, 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 I haul myself out of the warm water and wrap myself in Gerald's fleecy robe and pad down the hall with my wet feet. Raise my knuckles to rap on the door when I stop, my eyes fixed just above the ornate gold handle. It takes my buzzed brain a few seconds to parse what I am looking at, to catch up to the chill that's already freezing the blood in my veins and sending every hair standing on end. I stare, and keep staring, and trying to make sense of it. The locked room. The bolt is on the outside, on my side of the door. This room isn't locked from the inside to protect Gerald's privacy and keep me out. It's locked to keep something or someone in. Oh, fuck me. Is my role actually not house sitter, buta jailer, thump 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 too, I haven't opened the door. I called the police, but for some reason I got no reception inside the house. So I had to speak with them while standing out on the deck. They seemed to think I was prank calling after I told them I was house-sitting and scared by knocking. And when they asked me to go back inside the house and open the door, I said, "But there's no receptio, and so you won't hear if something happens. What if it's a monster that eats me before you get here?" I might have been slurring a little, too. Something to do with all those beers I had, or that fancy liquor in the cabinet that probably costs $2K a swallow. I only had one swallow. Anyway, when the dispatcher asked if I'd been drinking, I hung up. I decided to leave the mystery for the morning. But every time the noise quiets enough that I might sleep, a sudden furious pounding wakes me again. Pretty sure what he's actually got in there is a velociraptor, with its mouth tied shut so it can't shriek, only bang its claws and tail against things. And open doors, of course, hence the lock. Thud, thud. Christ, I'm losing it. Thump, fuck, it. I make my way upstairs in the dead of night to the door, flicking on my phone's flashlight and considering the bolt. I rap my knuckles on the wood. Knock, knock. Is anyone the... Knock, knock. The resulting knock sends my heart into spasms. For a second, I almost pass out standing up. Swallow hard. Okay. I square my shoulders, call out in my most assertive voice. Hello? Silence. Hey, is someone in there? Who just knocked? Silence. I'm not going to let you out unless you say something. Silence. Fine. I can play hardball with whoever or whatever is inside. I've taken all of 4 steps when suddenly, a loud knock, knock, knock. Then the door begins rattling. Rattling loudly, like someone's grabbed the knob and is shaking with all their might. Rattle, 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 rattle. I do the only sensible thing at this point. I leave the house. I come back in the morning and the room upstairs is quiet. I have a pleasant day scrolling on my phone and swimming laps in the indoor pool. But every so often there are those footsteps shuffling around above. I put a pizza in the oven for lunch and stand in the main room looking at the ceiling. And that's when Gerald reaches out. When I answer the phone, he thanks me for taking care of everything and asks if the squirrels kept me up. I put on a fake smile and tell him no. And I ask him how his vacation is going. Pretend like all is normal, like he's not hiding some crazy secret in there. He has that same shit-eating smile himself, like he's hiding a crazy secret in there. Things are great, he says. He's having a wonderful vacation. The ladies there all love him, 'cause he's got the riz. God, I hate this man. Then he sobers up and says, "Just remember, Zoomer, the one rule you have to follow. I'll be back in 2 days. Ignore those squirrels. Keep up the good work, and you and I will be ski-beady. You get me?" "I get you," I say. As soon as I'm off the phone with him, I'm back upstairs, outside the door, contemplating it. "Okay, Zoomer, I think. Let's do this." And I unlock the door and open it. The room inside is just a collection of boxes and storage. I don't see anyone at all. No velociraptors, no squirrels with bowling balls, no prisoner bound and gagged and thumping around. Not even a person who just for some reason can't talk and walks around with footsteps thudding. The room is empty. I'm about to step inside and search when the oven timer goes off for the pizza. So I shut the door and turn away, heading back down the hall. I'll go through those boxes right after lunch. I've almost reached the staircase when I hear it. The shriek of hinges. The door behind me is open. Time feels suspended as I stare at that open door. A door that I definitely closed. And I wonder if the wind did it, even as I know there are no windows open and no drafts. And then I hear it, even though I'm not moving. I'm standing still there in that hallway, but I hear it, loud and clear. Thud, thud the floorboards, like someone is stepping along them. Heavy steps, shuffling toward me. And that's all the warning I need before I'm ducking into the master bedroom, slamming the door shut, and realizing it has no lock. Fuck. I dash into the bathroom, which does have a lock, slam the door, lock it, and back away, my mouth motoring a series of shits and fucks as the door rattles. Something just beyond shakes the knob. Rattle, 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 and I fumble for my phone, only to remember belatedly that it has no reception inside these walls. I have to use the Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi isn't working. Why isn't the Wi-Fi fucking working? What happened? I need to get outside. I dash to the bathroom window, and that's when I realize the windows are sealed closed and made of some kind of reinforced glass. I grab the porcelain lid from the back of the toilet and slam it into the glass, and the lid cracks. The glass isn't dented, but what kind of psycho has windows in their bathroom that can't open? And there's a crackling sound. And then the same speakers that I previously used to blast music throughout the mansion now pipe a voice down at me, like the voice of God. But it's the voice of Gerald. You can't escape my pet, Zoomer. Sorry to do this to you, but that curse has to feed on somebody, and better you than me. Curse? I shout. I'm searching the bathroom for a weapon. Something else to use on the glass. I find baby powder under the sink and scatter it all over the floor. You've seen my collection. Gerald loves to hear himself talk. I imagine him pontificating in front of a whole crowd of old white dudes, tossing back expensive bourbon, drinking in their attention, holding court. I imagine him sweeping his arms out, wherever he is, bragging. To me, from across the world, you won't find anything like it anywhere in the world. But some of these items come from tombs. All those old stories about tombs and curses, they're not all fiction. And let me guess, your amulet is part of it? That shiny fucking thing. And I got the glass version. I should have known it. Meant something. It didn't look natural. Amulet of immortality, he gloats. Or at least agelessness. A shame I found it when I was already in my 60s. But that was nearly 70 years ago now. I'm well over a century, Zoomer. Really? Well, how about you let someone else be its meal? I thought you and I were, you know, Skybeady. You think I haven't seen you prancing your bare ass around my place? Oh, I didn't see any cameras, but I should probably have assumed. He chuckles. You're practically in the cradle. Don't feel bad. Scrabbling for crumbs, house sitting. You wouldn't have made much difference in the world. Me, every day I'm alive, I pour thousands into research, into charity, into making something of my life. More than you'd ever amount to, even if you did live to old age. But why do you even need me? Well, I'm its mark. I opened its tomb, took the amulet, but like anything, its energy is finite, especially this far from the tomb. I figured out when it gobbled my buddy first, who broke in and took the amulet with me. It took a while to come after me again. Next time it did, it got one of the guides who was with us. One touch drained the life out of him. That time, it took even longer for it to come back again. And I realized, draining the life essence out of someone, putting it in this amulet, takes a process. It always goes dormant for a while after, but once it wakes up again, once I start hearing footsteps, well, it needs to be fed, distracted. Or maybe you could give back the fucking amulet. Already told you, Zoomer, this is my eternal life we're talking about, and yours isn't worth shit. But I didn't open the tomb. Why would it come after me? A long chuckle. And then he says, no, but you did open the door. The door. The fucking door. With its ornate carvings, and all those weird symbols, and shit, it must have been taken right off the tomb. He's made me into a tomb raider, and now I'm the nearest one to violate the sanctity of its space, while Gerald is off across the globe. My phone is a brick, and I can't get out through the glass. This thing is going to kill me if I don't think fast. Sorry, Zoomer. Bye-bye now. And then I hear a click and realize how fucked I am, because even remotely, Gerald has control over the house. The bathroom door unlocks. I am definitely fucking dead. I have about 5 seconds to figure out a plan before that thing sucks the life out of me. All I know is that I can't let it touch me. I back away from the opening door as footprints appear in the baby powder I've spilled on the floor. Thud. Thud. I snatch towels from around the tub and fling them, and the invisible something does not slow as it shrugs the towels off. But for a few seconds I can clearly see a sort of towel mummy, and we play Ring Around the Rosie around the bathtub. It slouches after me, footsteps appearing in the baby powder, while Gerald's voice booms, "One touch, Zoomer. Ha 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 ha. One touch." Before the bathroom door can swing closed, I dash out, the footsteps thudding after me, gaining speed. I bolt downstairs, but the front door of the house is sealed. The glass doors leading out to the patio are locked, and also strongly reinforced. Gerald's voice taunts me, his eyes following me through the cameras. "Keep zooming, Zoomer." Like this is all just a sick sport, and I'll be damned if I let him spectate my end. So I scramble to the door to the one part of the house I haven't really ventured, the basement. Oh ho ho ho, now you're really trapped. Ignoring him, I scurry past wine racks and shelving, and aha, there it is, the panel for the breakers. Shutting the power down won't unlock the doors, but I'm hoping to at least get this dickweed's eyes off me as I rapidly flip all the switches. Gerald snarls, "You'll still be locked in, you little sh..." All the lights go off, and I am trapped in total darkness. Fumbling for my phone's flashlight, I tap on the dim luminescence, listening, panting in the pitch black. If it's already down here with me, I'm fucked. There's no place to hide, and only one door, one staircase back out. I stand, panting, terrified. Thud, thud. My heart almost gives out in relief, gives. The footsteps are above me, circling around overhead. The curse hasn't followed me down, perhaps because it doesn't realize where the stairs are. It just keeps shuffling around overhead, and sometimes moves a little ways off, but always circles back, homing in on me, pounding at the floor, like an invisible zombie. Of course, as soon as Gerald gets back, I'm fucked. I think about the mansion's layout, and finally, I formulate a plan. I'm in Gerald's fanciest bathrobe when he finally arrives back at the mansion, and I haul myself up from the lounger where I've been tanning by a window beside the indoor pool. The atmosphere is silent. No thudding, thumping, or pounding. And I've spent most of the past few hours typing up this post while sipping one of his probably priceless brandies. Which brings me to the point I need some advice on what to do about the amulet. With the tomb raided and most of the relics in museums and the door here on the mansion's upper floor, there's no real way to put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak. I'm open to suggestions about the amulet's fate. Anyway, I called late last night and lied to Gerald that I found a way to break the curse. This morning, I restored power so he could watch me on the camera and see for himself how quiet the whole place is. Well, I'll be damned. Gerald looks genuinely impressed when he steps in through the front door, and a little annoyed. He glares at me as I come out to greet him. "How the hell are you still alive?" "It's a secret, one I'd be happy to let you in on." I examine my nails. "For 100K, his eyes bulge. "You gotta be shitting me, Zoomer. Listen, you drank about $10,000 worth of alcohol and left my bathroom a fucking mess. You're lucky I don't sue you for damages. Lucky? You tried to kill me. I could report you to the authorities. That money is peanuts to you anyway. Plus, if you don't pay me, you'll regret it. I didn't actually break the curse. It'll get you if I don't tell you the secret." He laughs. "Oh, Zoomer, never play poker. You wouldn't be standing here safely if there were any danger. You're just lying to try to scare me into opening my wallet. You think I don't recognize a hustle? Listen, you want to play legal games with me? I'll crush you like the bug you are. But I'm not listening to him anymore. Instead, I'm looking past him to where the pool room doors are open, and I can see the stretch of blue water and my lounger at the far back, near the deep end. Wet marks have appeared on the wood floor, coming out from the pool room doors. The plush oriental rug Gerald and I are standing on has a few dark marks on it. Gerald is too busy snarling at me to hear the first thud, but then his face whitens and he whirls around and exclaims, "No, no, no, stay away." He stumbles backwards, but it's too late. His skin withers, shriveling like a time-elapsed grape, drying into a raisin, his hair whitening, and his skin shrinking onto bone until he resembles a crusty mummy, like all the years of his immortal life have been sucked away. And then he drops dead to the floor, the amulet glittering on his neck. Was gonna warn him, but, you know. I checked my ratings this morning. He gave me a 1-star review. Story number 3. You ever wonder what kind of job makes a man come apart at the seams, fractured not over weeks or years, but in one single black-lunged night? Not from stress, not from boredom, but from something else. Something dry and crawling that licks at the edge of your sanity like wind-blown sand against old bone. Yeah, I used to wonder that too. Now I don't wonder much of anything. My thoughts come slow, like they've got to drag themselves up through molasses. I don't sleep. Not really. When I do, I hear the whispering. I see flickers in corners that should be empty. I don't trust my reflection anymore. I don't trust my own voice. Something came back with me from that place. Something I never invited. The job was simple, or so I thought. One night shift in the middle of nowhere, and a list of rules. Just 12 of them. Keep your head down, stay awake, follow the rules. But rules mean nothing when the air itself wants to gut you. When silence starts to hum. When shadows breathe. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name's Eric. I'm 28 years old, though now I feel older, worn down like desert stone under centuries of wind. I've never been the stay-in-one-place kind of guy. I've chased hurricanes on oil rigs, run toward wildfires when everyone else ran away, and even launched myself off rooftops for a few thousand YouTube subscribers back in the day. I guess you could say danger was my drug. I didn't just flirt with risk. I waltzed with it, arms wide, laughing in its face. So when I saw the job post, a night watch gig at an isolated weather station in the far reaches of West Texas, it felt like a gift. The pay was suspiciously good. The location, dead center of the XYZ desert, 50 miles off any real road. No towns, no neighbors, no signal. Just a pin on a map and a time to show up. I packed light. Books I wouldn't read, a journal I wouldn't write in, and that stupid optimism only people who haven't been broken yet still carry. The outpost, Station 119B, was a concrete box, one room, no markings, no signs of life. Just a dented steel door and a big black window staring out at an endless stretch of sand. Inside there was a desk cluttered with equipment I couldn't name, a fridge, a cot, and a generator. That sounded like it was one bad night away from dying. But what caught my attention wasn't any of that. It was the manual. A thin grease-stained pamphlet on the desk, labeled in crooked red ink. Rules for night shift operator. Station 119. Be not instructions, not training. Rules. There were 12. And they weren't the kind of rules you find in HR handbooks. They read like folklore passed down from some ancient desert cult. 1. Do not open the door between 12:13 a.m. and 1:34 a.m., no matter who is knocking. 2. If you hear tapping on the window, turn off all lights and lie face down until it stops. 3. Log wind speed every 30 minutes. If wind speed hits 0, hide in the supply closet until it rises again. 4. If the generator goes out, light the red emergency candle. Never use a flashlight. 5. Do not acknowledge voices calling your name from outside. 6. If the desert goes silent, no wind, no bugs, recite the phrase taped to the fridge. 7. Check the sand just outside the door every hour. If footprints appear going in but not out, call base code, yellow echo. 8. If the phone rings more than once per night, unplug it. 9. Never look at the reflection in the window after 2:44 a.m. 10. Don't fall asleep. 11. Don't eat the food in the fridge after midnight. 12. If Rule 1 is broken, burn the manual immediately and pray. I read them again and again. Each pass made my skin prickle. It was like reading a curse disguised as policy. But instead of walking away, I laughed, really laughed, sharp, barked out loud like a man who thinks he's above fear, because I was still the guy who thought ghosts were fun stories and rules were made to be tested. It sounded strange in that room. Too loud, too human. It bounced off the concrete walls like it didn't belong there. Maybe it didn't in my head. This was all just some elaborate, hazing ritual. A creepy prank left behind by some disgruntled ex-employee with a flair for drama. I imagined a guy, like me, bored, probably high, scribbling down those rules just to mess with the next poor sucker assigned to Station 119B. The candle, the weird times, the chanting. Classic psychological tripwire stuff. Probably some government joke I wasn't in on. Still, the place didn't sit right with me. The air was too dry. Not just desert dry, but hollow, like the atmosphere had been scooped out. The silence felt rehearsed, choreographed, and the stars above the station. They didn't twinkle, they just watched. Cold, close, too sharp. Like pinholes poked through a thin sheet of sky. If you stared too long, you got the feeling something might stare back. But I told myself, I've jumped out of planes. I've stood on collapsing fire lines. I've put my own damn hand in a box full of scorpions on a dare for likes. What's a little ghost story in the desert? The first couple of hours passed like I expected. Dull, dry, and quiet. I logged the wind speed like rule number 3 said, every 30 minutes. I even timed it with my watch to be precise, treating it more like a chore than a warning. I made some instant coffee that tasted like regret. I watched a tarantula the size of my palm crawl across the outside of the window. Slow, aimless, like it knew it was being watched. Then around midnight, things started to bend, not snap, not break, just bend, subtly, like the world had gone a few degrees off center. It was 12:11, just past midnight, when I first heard the knock. A sound so ordinary it felt impossible for it to feel so wrong. Not banging, not frantic, just 3 knocks, spaced out, intentional, like whoever was outside wasn't asking to be let in. They were stating they were already here. Every hair on my neck stood at attention. My hands clenched around the mug before I realized they were shaking. My mind went straight back to rule number 1. Never open the door between 12:13 and 1:34 in the morning, no matter who's knocking. I froze. My thoughts tried to be logical, tried to be brave. Probably just the wind, I whispered to myself, though the words felt hollow even as I said them. But the wind doesn't knock. It howls, it hisses, it dances through cracks and moans through empty places. It doesn't walk up to a reinforced steel door and knock 3 times. Exactly. Then stop. I checked the wall clock. 12:13. My throat tightened like I'd swallowed dry sand. My legs screamed to move. Toward the door. Away from it. I didn't even know. But I stayed still. Not because I believed the rule. No, not yet. But because something in my gut, something primal and old, told me that opening that door would be a very final kind of mistake. The knocks came again. Same rhythm. 3 knocks, then silence. At 12:20, more knocks. At 12:29, again. At 12:41, they kept coming. Always 3, every few minutes. Always the same weight behind them. As if the thing on the other side had all the time in the world. I didn't respond. I didn't speak. I just sat there, heart hammering, watching the second hand crawl across the clock face like it was moving through tar. Then came the tapping. Not on the door, on the window. A soft, delicate tap, 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 like fingernails on glass. I turned slowly, deliberately, expecting to see something, anything, a face, a shape. But the window showed only the dark, stretching desert, pale sand under a black sky, empty, still. Then tap, 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 right against the glass, closer this time, more urgent, like whatever was outside had grown impatient. Something deep in me, some instinct older than thought, screamed to obey the manual. I threw the lights off and dropped flat to the floor, face down, just like rule number 2 demanded. And let me tell you, I felt ridiculous, lying on cold concrete, like a scolded child playing hide and seek. My breath echoed in my ears. Too loud, too fast. The tapping continued, soft, steady, like it was trying to coax me up. I didn't move. The darkness stretched forever. Finally, mercifully, the tapping stopped. I waited. 10 seconds, 20. Then slowly, I pushed myself up, muscles aching from the tension. I flicked the lights back on and blinked into the sterile brightness. Then, like a complete jackass, I laughed at myself. Really mature, I thought, terrified by shadows and knocks, like I'm in a Halloween special. But the laughter didn't stick this time. It crumbled in my throat like dry paper, because as I stood there, letting my pulse settle, my eyes drifted toward the wind monitor on the desk, and it was flatlining. 0. No wind, not even a whisper. My stomach dropped. Rule number 3 roared back into my mind like a siren. If wind speed hits 0, hide in the supply closet until it rises again. And suddenly, I wasn't laughing anymore. I checked the wind monitor again, hoping, praying I'd read it wrong. Wind speed, 0 miles per hour. Nothing. Not a breeze. Not a whisper. The line on the graph was dead flat, like a heartbeat that had given up. My chest tightened, squeezed from the inside like my lungs were folding in. That couldn't be right. Out here, the wind never stopped completely. Even the still nights carried a faint restless stir through the sand. But now, the world outside was holding its breath. I should have stayed inside, but something pulled me toward the door. Not curiosity, denial, that desperate human instinct to confirm the lie, to tell yourself everything's fine if you can just see it for yourself. I stepped outside and immediately felt the weight of a mistake settle on me like lead. The air was wrong, not just calm, dead. Still in a way that felt manufactured, unnatural. Even my own breathing sounded too loud. There was no wind, no rustle of dry shrubs, no skittering bugs, nothing but the crunch of my boots on sand. The desert had gone mute. And then I saw them. Footprints. In the sand. Just a few feet from the threshold. Coming in, but none are going out. I stood there for a full, frozen second, my body refusing to catch up to what my brain was screaming. Then instinct kicked in. I spun, bolted for the door, slammed it shut behind me like it might keep something out that had already gotten in. Lock, chain, bolt. I checked everything, hands trembling, breath sharp and uneven, and then my stomach twisted as another rule clawed its way up from memory. Rule number 7. Check the sand just outside the door every hour. If footprints appear going in but not out, call base. Code, Yellow Echo. The satellite phone was right where it had been, on the desk, a gray relic from another era. I grabbed it like a lifeline, dialed the code with fingers that barely obeyed me. It rang, once, twice, then it connected. And what I heard next nearly stopped my heart. It was my voice, but not like a recording. It was live. It was me. Except it wasn't. The cadence was slightly wrong. The tone a hair off. Too calm, too final. You shouldn't have opened the door, it said. Click silence. I stood there, staring at the receiver like it might explain itself. Then I yanked the cord from the back. The phone went dead. That's when the lights cut out, all at once, like someone had flipped a master switch on reality. Total blackness swallowed the room. The kind of black that has depth, like it could reach out and touch you back. I didn't breathe, didn't move. Then my memory jolted into motion. Rule number 4. If the generator goes out, light the red emergency candle. Never use a flashlight. I scrambled to the shelf, nearly knocking over the chair in the dark. My fingers found the candle, a thick, stubby thing already set in a glass holder. I fumbled for the lighter, struck it, and lit the wick with a hand that couldn't stop shaking. A small flickering flame sprang to life, and the room changed. The dim red light didn't just reveal the space, it warped it. Shadows twisted too far into the corners, stretching longer than they should. The air shimmered, barely perceptible, like heat off asphalt, but colder. The walls felt too close now, as if the room had been inching inward, shrinking around me. When I wasn't looking, I turned slowly, and for just a breath, I thought I saw movement in the reflection of the window. Not a shape, not a face, just shifting. The kind of thing your brain registers an instant too late. That's when I heard it. A whisper, soft, barely audible, but unmistakable. Eric, my name. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't angry. It was gentle, almost caring, like the voice of someone who knew me, loved me, wanted me to trust it. But it didn't come from the door, and it didn't come from outside. It came from somewhere, from everywhere, inside the room, behind the walls, in the space under the cot, in the reflection in the window I wasn't supposed to look at. My skin crawled. My mouth went dry. My heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to run for the door by itself. Rule number 5. Do not acknowledge voices calling your name from outside. But was it outside? I didn't know. And that's what terrified me most. I clenched my jaw, shut my eyes, and forced myself not to move, not to speak. The voice came again. Eric, it whispered, closer this time, like it had crossed a threshold, like it was already inside. I clutched the manual like a child clings to a teddy bear in the dark, desperate for comfort that paper couldn't possibly give. My arms wrapped around it as if the ink inside could somehow shield me from whatever else was breathing in that room with me. Then I heard it. The fridge. Buzzing, low, mechanical. A sound so ordinary it shouldn't have chilled my blood. But in that moment, it was like hearing a coffin creak open by itself. My eyes snapped open. The red candle flickered wildly, the flame stuttering as if suffocating in air that was too still, too heavy. Then came the silence, not quiet, silence. The kind that doesn't just fill the room but consumes it. No wind, no bugs, no low hum from the machines that had kept me grounded in reality for the past few hours. Even the candle's flicker made no sound, just an aching, crushing stillness. Rule number 6. My breath hitched. I bolted toward the fridge, legs trembling like they didn't belong to me. My fingers scrambled along the metal door until they found it. A small, weathered strip of paper taped just above the handle. The writing was faint, as though the ink had tried to escape the words it formed. Watcher of dusk, I stand still. In your silence, pass me by. My lips moved before I could think. Oh, watcher of dusk, I began, my voice cracking like an old record. I stand still in your silence. Pass me by. It felt like trying to speak underwater. My tongue stumbled over the rhythm the first few times, the words sticking to my throat like glue. I repeated the phrase again and again, louder, and then I heard it. The silence was shattered. A sudden gust slammed against the walls of the outpost, making the concrete groan in protest. Wind howled through unseen cracks. Insects returned in a chorus of buzzing, scratching life. The room breathed again, and God help me. I nearly cried, but the relief lasted all of 3 seconds. Then the phone rang. That shouldn't have been possible. I had unplugged it, pulled the cord straight out of the back. I stared at the empty socket, then at the receiver. It rang again, and again, 3 times total. Rule number 8 screamed through my skull. If the phone rings more than once per night, unplug it. I already had. I backed away, the manual still clutched in one hand, candle in the other. My eyes flicked to the wall clock. 2:51 a.m. And just like that, another rule surfaced. Rule number 9. Never look at the reflection in the window after 2:44 a.m. I hadn't meant to. I swear I hadn't. But the moment I thought it, I looked, and that's when I saw it. Not in the window itself, but in the reflection. In the far corner of the room, behind me, a tall, human-shaped figure, perfectly still, head cocked slightly to one side like it was trying to understand me. My breath caught in my throat, like a wire pulled tight. I turned. Nothing there. I whipped back to the window, and it was still there. Same spot, same tilt of the head, watching, unmoving. Lit another red candle, then another. My hands moved on instinct now. Desperation drowning thought. The room bathed in flickering crimson light. Shadows danced madly along the walls. The figure remained, still, patient. Then I blinked, and it was gone. Just gone. No sound, no movement. Like it had never been there. But I knew it had. My instincts screamed, get out, get in the truck, drive, until the sky changes. But the manual, it said nothing about leaving, not once. And suddenly that absence felt deliberate, like the rules had never been written for leaving, only for surviving until morning, and morning felt very, very far away. Then it hit me. Rule number 11, don't eat the food in the fridge after midnight. Simple. Strange. I'd read it like a joke the first time, but now it loomed in my mind like a warning carved into the walls of a tomb. Something churned in my gut. Hunger, maybe, or dread wearing hunger's mask. I moved toward the fridge. Every part of me screamed, don't. But my hand gripped the handle anyway. It was cold, damp with condensation. I opened it and found nothing. Not empty shelves, not expired leftovers, nothing. Every item that had been there earlier, gone, erased, as if they'd never existed. Except for one thing. A single, folded note resting where the milk used to be. I unfolded it slowly, heart pounding like a drumbeat in a funeral march. Don't look at the window again. That was it. No explanation, no name, just that one line, like the fridge itself was whispering. My hand trembled as I slammed the door shut. Then, knock, knock, knock. Again. Same rhythm, same weight. The sound drilled into me, stripped away whatever calm I had left. My whole body tensed. But this time, instinct didn't scream. This time, I didn't freeze. I glanced at the clock. 1:35 in the morning. I blinked. Wait, that was past the window. Rule number 1 ended at 1:34. Technically, I could open the door, and I did, cautiously, slowly, holding my breath like it might make a difference. I opened the door and saw nothing, just the empty desert, black sky overhead, wind rustling sand like whispers too quiet to understand. But then I looked down, and that's when my stomach dropped. A second manual lay on the ground, different cover, thicker, stamped in large blood-red lettering. Rules for Eric, Night 2. Night 2. There wasn't supposed to be a Night 2. I wasn't coming back. No one was. That's when I realized the truth. This place, Station 119B, wasn't a weather station. It never had been. It was a test, a ritual, a trap, and I wasn't an employee. I was a subject, a sacrifice, a participant in something I didn't understand and could never escape. Maybe I hadn't broken rule number 1. Not technically, but I didn't care about technicalities anymore. I was done playing by their rules. I walked back inside, teeth clenched, and dropped the new manual into the candle flame, just like rule number 12 said. If rule number 1 is broken, burn the manual immediately and pray. The paper caught instantly. The flame devoured it. Pages curled and blackened, the fire dancing like it had a mind of its own, like it was laughing. I backed away. That's when the room changed, instantly. No warning, no flicker. Just gone. The cot, gone. The fridge, gone. The desk, the equipment, the satellite phone, all erased. The room had reset, same size, same shape, same walls, but stripped bare. Just me, the window, and the candle. My breath came in shallow gulps. Then came the tapping. But this time, it wasn't on the glass. It was inside the walls, light skittering taps at first, then heavier, then moving, circling me, like something was crawling through the concrete, tracing a spiral I couldn't see, trapping me in the center. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. And then I remember screaming. I don't remember why exactly. Only that my voice tore from my throat, like it was trying to escape without me. I remember scratching at the door, fingernails splitting against steel. I remember the candle going out, and I remember the shadows. They crawled under my skin, not metaphorically. I could feel them, like black centipedes burrowing through my veins, eating their way into my thoughts. Then, nothing. I woke up at dawn, face down in the dirt, 50 yards from the station. My clothes are damp with dew. My hands are shaking. My car keys clenched tight in one fist. The manual, gone. I stumbled back to the building. The door hung open. No lock, no chain. Inside, empty. No furniture, no gear, no candles. Only one thing remained. A mirror, taped to the center of the window. I walked up to it. I should have turned away. I should have remembered rule number 9, but I looked. And what looked back wasn't me. It wore my face, but not my eyes. The eyes were wide, too wide, stretched like the skin around them had been, peeled back. They were black, bottomless, not hollow, but full of things I couldn't describe, things that were watched from the other side of the glass, things that waited, things that I remember. Now I don't take jobs anymore. I don't go outside after dark. I stay indoors. I keep the lights on. I pretend the rules still protect me. But nights are hard. Sometimes I hear knocking, Always 3 times. And if the wind ever dies completely, I stop breathing, just in case it's still out there, waiting for me to forget the rules, even just once. Story number 4. I was at work when I received a call from my son's school, worried that the little guy had thrown up again. I quickly dismissed myself from a meeting with the other partners and stepped into the hall. "Hello? Is everything all right?" I asked. "Good. Afternoon, Jack. This is Amanda calling. Is now a good time?" I frowned. Why was the principal reaching out? Sure. I'm sorry, but is everything okay with Flynn? Is he sick again?" There was a long pause before Amanda spoke. "I have some concerning material here that your son was working on during recess. We confiscated it because the other children were getting scared. Flynn was a bit upset about that, and he isn't calming down. I understand you're at work, but is it possible that you could come by?" I was already grabbing my keys and heading towards the elevator. "Of course. But have you reached out to Rose? She's closer by. We tried several times, but she hasn't picked up her phone." I hissed through my teeth. I loved my wife, but if there is one thing that gets on my nerves about her, it's the fact that she never picks up the phone. It's like she has a special knack for never being by it, especially when there is an emergency. While I was speeding down the freeway, Rose called. "Jack, please tell me you're on the way to school." "I am. Want to tell me what you were up to in the garden this time?" "Look, hon, I already feel bad. I called the school as soon as I got back inside. I'm just turning the corner now." I shook my head and let out a slow exhale. A healthy marriage really did come down to picking your battles wisely. "Sounds good, Rosie. I'll be there in 10. I pulled into the school's parking lot and power walked over to the main entrance, where 2 armed security guards chatted with one another. I ignored my buzzing phone and dabbed my brow with my favorite silk handkerchief. I greeted both men and handed over my ID. While I waited, I checked my phone and saw several missed calls from my secretary, in addition to 1 missed call from Bob, the managing partner. Oh well. Fuck Bob. My kid is more important. The security guard took his sweet time checking my ID. Normally I wouldn't mind that. We paid good money to keep our son in a school that cared about the safety of its children, but I didn't like the dark look one of the security guards gave me once I got my ID back. I flung open the door to the admin building and locked eyes with the secretary. She looked me up and down while her fingers danced across her keyboard. "Amanda is expecting you." She said, "Go ahead and walk right in. I'll let her know you're on the way." "Thank you," I said. Unfortunately, I knew how to get there by myself because, like I alluded to earlier, my son has had a recent slew of health issues. The odd thing, though, is that these issues didn't seem to have a physical cause, which led Rosie and me to suspect some kind of psychological explanation. The school psychologist agreed with us, and ever since, we have all been trying to get Flynn to understand he can get our attention without forcing himself to vomit. It had been a while since he last threw up, which made me suspect at the moment these drawings were his latest way of trying to get attention. Amanda looked up from her stack of papers and smiled when I stepped in. "Jack, thank you for coming by," she said. She reached out and took my hand in hers. I nodded and took a seat across from her. "I like the desk. You got an upgrade." I rapped my knuckles against it. Solid wood right there. She chuckled and took off her glasses. Her honey brown eyes were soft, her voice soothing. "How are you?" I laughed and looked away. There was a cute picture of a kitten hanging onto a branch that caught my eye. "How do you think? This is what? The 7th time this month that he's done this." I massaged my temples, reminded myself to breathe. Then there's work and everything else. Amanda tapped a manicured finger against her lips. "How are things with Rose?" "Good. We are in a very good place now." "I'm glad to hear that, Jack. Really." "All right. Well, enough of this," I said. "Where's Rose and Flynn?" "They left a few minutes before you arrived. Flynn was getting a bit too... how do I put it?" "Speak plainly, please. You know me, Amanda. I don't care for all that fake talk." Amanda folded her arms and sighed. "He was getting upset. He hit one of the nurses and nearly jumped across the table to get to his drawing. I've seen some pretty possessive children, but I've never seen one get that upset over their art. How is he doing at home? Does he get protective over either one of you? Does he play well with any neighborhood kids or..." I rolled my eyes. "The fucking schools these days, man, I'll tell you. The way the administrators talk reminds me of corporate speak. Just a bunch of phony bullshit masquerading as politeness. Good Lord. Let me see it already. I want to know what everyone is getting so upset about. It better be the worst damn scene imaginable to justify." Amanda slid the paper across the desk and looked away, but not before I caught her grimace. I grabbed the paper and flipped it over. I stared at it for some time and tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Then my hands started to shake. I wanted to ask so many different questions after realizing what my boy had drawn. Questions that every father is afraid to ask when something like this happens. But my throat was so dry that any words would have come out as choked grunts. "Take your time," Amanda whispered. I finally found my voice and said, I don't understand. Could he have seen something like this in a video game or show?" "Possibly. How well do you monitor his technology usage?" I placed the picture back on the table, left it face down. I wanted it burned, but I needed some questions answered first. "He doesn't have internet access, and the TV is limited to what? The Animal Channel? And the History one? Forget what they are called." She shrugged. "These days, those channels have more than just animals or history. But either way, Sarah is on vacation, so she won't be available to see Flynn anytime soon. In the meantime, I suggest you look very closely at the media you allow him to consume. Tell me, Amanda, what do you really think about this?" "Really don't know, Jack. The throwing up was bad enough. This makes things worse. I know you, so I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt, but to others it looks bad. You told me to give it to you straight, so I will. It's not normal for a young kid to draw something so violent, and we can't control the other kids from going home and telling their parents what they saw." I didn't like that. "What are you trying to say?" She got up from her chair and walked around the desk, taking a seat on the edge. The late afternoon sunlight made her hair match the color of her eyes. "I'm saying that if this continues, we may have to expel Flynn." I sprang up and got closer than I should have, but I was so pissed over everything that I lost myself. "Are you serious? After all the fucking money I have sunk into this school, we have donated double, no triple, of what anyone else has." I grabbed her arm and stared deep into her eyes. You're not kicking him out of here, even if he draws the damn devil. Got that? Amanda didn't move my hand away. I wasn't grabbing her that hard either. Not any harder than I have before. I let go and sunk back into my chair. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. She came closer, and before I knew it, she was running her hands through my hair, the way she used to. I wish, she began. I took hold of her wrists and moved them away. Your lucky Rose didn't see that. Suddenly professional again, Amanda returned to her seat. She placed her glasses back on and shuffled through the documents on her desk before handing me one. This is for you. It's a record of today's incident along with my approval to keep Flynn at home for the remainder of the week. Sarah will be back by next Monday. Maybe she will be able to help, or at least point us in a better direction. I thanked her and started to leave, but then I stopped in the doorway. Amanda, I'm sorry. I knew what I was getting into. Jack. No, she didn't. I stopped by the local pizzeria on the way back home. Nothing made Flynn happier than a couple slices, don't forget the extra olives, and an old Western flick. When I got home, Flynn ran and tried to snatch the pizza box from my hands. He chased me through the house and into the kitchen where Rose was drinking what appeared to be her third glass of wine, judging by the blush on her face. I greeted her with a kiss, and one of those looks that said, "We have a lot to talk about." Then I started grabbing plates while Flynn got us some sodas from the fridge. Flynn talked to us about some new dinosaur he was obsessed with. He showed us pictures on his iPad and enthusiastically explained how it defended itself with its thumbs. In between bites, I marveled at the resilience within the mind of a child. How was it that they could change emotions so quickly, or forget so soon? Was that a blessing or a curse? Whichever it was, I envied my son for that. These days I felt a growing weight that seemed to carry me further and further into a dull apathy. I tried to stay in the present. I felt more alive there. But at night when everything got quiet, those inner voices got really fucking loud. I noticed my wife glaring at me over her wine glass. I smiled at her tiredly, ignoring those cries in the back of my mind. The ones that repeated again and again. She knows later that night, after we tucked Flynn into bed with his legion of protective stuffed animals and guardian war tabby, we started to discuss the day. I'm scared, Jack. I know. So am I. I don't want him in therapy, she said softly. Did I ever tell you about my grandma? How they put her in that one asylum because she kept having nightmares of a man watching her from the closet. They don't do that anymore. But the other kids, if they find out, they will rip him to shreds. I can't take that. He's a strong boy. He can get through anything. I traced her shoulder in the way I knew she liked. We'll look back at all of this and laugh someday. Nothing bad lasts forever. We have both been through worse. I heard her sob. Tears started to wet my shirt. I just want him to be okay. I held her while she cried. Then after she cried herself out and drifted off, I laid there and stared up at the ceiling fan as it spun. I couldn't fall asleep, so I checked on Flynn, who was sleeping safe and sound, then went to sit down in the living room. I don't know when I fell asleep, but I do know it was my son's screams that caused me to scramble off the sofa and raced down the hall. I pushed. The door open. Flynn was on the bed, knees drawn up to his chest. He was crying and looking back and forth between me and the window. It was wide open. I leaned outside. We live on the outskirts of town, so there is a fairly wide range of view from the second floor of the house. There was no one on the lawn, nor were there any signs that someone climbed up or down the wall. I couldn't see anything out by the trees either. "Daddy!" Flynn shouted. It was in the closet, not outside. "What?" I said. That's when I noticed the closet doors were wide open. Some of Flynn's toys were scattered around. Plushies, for the most part. They were missing limbs, eyes, and heads. Rose ran into the room. "Jack, what the hell is going on? Mommy, there was someone in the closet who said they wanted to take me into the woods." Flynn sobbed. "The woods? The woods." I looked at Rose. "Stay with Flynn and call the police. I'm going to drive around, see if I find anyone." "Are you stupid?" she shouted. "You're not going anywhere if some freak is out there trying to snatch our kid. Stay right there. I will call the cops." Rose left the room. I clung to Flynn until I was finally able to relax by reminding myself that he was here with me, safe and sound, not taken. "Flynn? Buddy? Can you tell me what the person looked like?" Flynn trembled. I couldn't see them." "What do you mean? I thought you said they were in your closet." He hugged the only stuffed animal that hadn't been ripped apart to his chest. It was skinny and had long hair. I paused, wondering if it would be too soon to ask him the question I was terrified to ask. But I knew I had to. "Did it hurt you?" Flynn shook his head. "No, but it told me that it doesn't like you." He started to cry, and between deep breaths he said that it doesn't like you or Amanda. An eerie silence settled over the room. I leaned away from my son and took him by the shoulders. "Are you sure it said that name?" Flynn nodded. I felt rather than sensed Rose enter the room. I didn't look back at her. I don't think I could have, even if I tried. "Are the police on their way?" I finally managed to ask. "No," Rose said. "But I think I found out who the culprit is. Come see." "Flynn, stay." I hugged my son and followed my wife out into the backyard. It was cold out. A low wind sent a haunting moan echoing into the night. We came to a stop before the garden shed. It was there that I realized the moans weren't coming from the wind, but from inside the shed. "Rose, what's going on?" I asked. She looked to the side. Her cheeks were stained red. "I caught the person who has been destroying our family." I stayed planted. "Why didn't you call the police?" Rose, my Rose, laughed into the night. "The police? How would they help with this?" Her voice rose in pitch. "Come see what I planted." From inside that damn shed, I heard another moan. I looked at my wife, and then at the shed. In that moment, I made a choice, not one that I am particularly proud of. And had I not been a father, I may have chosen differently. I shoved Rose with all my strength. She hit the shed with little resistance and collapsed into a sobbing wreck on the ground. I called the police and waited there, watching Rose wilt until they arrived. She was taken into custody, and I was questioned. I received little sympathy from the officers and later the detectives. I told the judge at Rose's sentencing that I wished for some lenience, and that Flynn would still need his mother once she was mentally well again. However, the nature of her crime against Amanda was so severe that she was made an example of. It was a little over a year later, while I was at work, that I received a call from my son's school. They told me that he had started drawing again, and that I needed to see what he had drawn. I sighed. He had just started doing better. I was listening to the radio on my way to his school, and while I listened, I heard them start talking about an event that occurred last night. Apparently, there had been a mass breakout from Levitt Asylum, the asylum where my wife was being treated. Story number 5. I live in a fairly safe neighborhood in a not-so-safe country, if you know what I mean. I reside on a street that's lined with houses that are blocked around, private, and everyone more or less knows everyone in there, but of course, we're always vigilant because you can never tell when you might be unlucky. I live about a quarter-mile in, my house right after a bridge next to a deep river that you can't really cross, and on the other side, miles of tall grass. I live with 7 other people in the household. Every night we ensure we lock the main front gate and activate the security cameras. We also have staircases leading to the front and back entrances of the second floor. That's burglar-proofed and secured by even more gates. The remaining perimeter of the property is blocked off with high concrete walls adjoining the roof, leaving no space for any sizable creature to crawl through. This particular night, the entire family was out. They had gone to a wake of a close family friend. I was home alone because I'm 26 and needed an early night's rest for work the following day. It was just after 8 p.m. I locked up and went to shower. I usually play music while doing so, but a few minutes into my routine, I could have sworn I heard a faint knock coming from my front door. So I quickly jumped out, turned off the music, and stood in silence. Feelings of confusion and panic were creeping in because I was 100% sure everything was locked. The gates, the doors, plus I had the keys inside the house. A few drawn-out moments passed when I heard it again, but this time it came from my bedroom window, which is on the second floor with no ledge to stand on the opposite side of the house. I checked the cameras and saw that there was no one at any of the windows or entrances, and it showed no one had entered any time into the property. My logical mind brushed it off as maybe a huge bug or something, but I wasn't convinced. I got dressed, and as soon as I walked back into the living room, I heard the padlock on the main front gate being tampered with. This padlock is inside, and you basically have to shove your hand in an awkward position through narrow metal bars to even reach it. I hurriedly checked through a window that gave direct sight to the main gate, and what I saw made my knees buckle. Standing outside my gate, in the darkness of the night, faintly aglow by the dimming street light, was my grandmother. She was in one of her homemade dresses she had sewn, and her head was covered with a white translucent shawl that obscured part of her face. Now you're probably thinking, dude, go open the gate for your grandma. Well, only one problem with that. She's been dead for 14 years and was cremated. I blinked 1,000,000 times trying to blame exhaustion from work for what I was seeing, but somehow whatever that stood there taking the form of my poor grandmother had caught sight of me looking through the window. It slowly raised its hand and waved awkwardly and beckoned me to come open the gate without saying a word. Immediately, I called my mom and explained what was going on. Thankfully, she didn't doubt me, because she had also experienced strange things, along with my other relatives in this street. I looked out after making the call and saw that the figure was gone. Within 20 minutes, my mom and other relatives arrived home. They did a thorough search and found no one on the property. What's even weirder is that the security camera footage showed no one was standing at the gate during the time I was experiencing this. My older cousin decided to do one last check around the house outside this time, and in some tall, overgrown bushes a few feet from the property, he found a white shawl, except this one had many holes and was tinged with dirt as if it had been buried under the earth for years. This happened a month ago, and since then I've never stayed home at night alone. Story number 6. Last year, my friends and I decided to do a 3-day hike on the Ouachita Trail. Ben, Sean, and I had done multi-day hikes together on different parts of the roughly 210-mile trail before, and were hoping to knock out another section before the summer was over. The section we decided to hike this time had a public camping area at the base of the trailhead that led to the Ouachita Trail proper, which we had decided to take advantage of. We had parked Ben's car at the ranger station near our endpoint and carpooled in mine to the camp. When we arrived, the sun had started to set, but the place was bustling. Kids were riding bikes around the footpath, and families were sitting around grills enjoying the scenery. Places like this weren't really my cup of tea. I preferred more secluded, quiet areas to set up camp. But something about the communal atmosphere gave rise to a sense of nostalgia for the times my family took me camping at places like this. The time we set up our tents, night had fallen, and the crackling of dozens of campfires filled the air. We ate a quick supper of roasted hot dogs and a few beers before heading to bed. That next morning, I awoke to distant shouts echoing through the campsite. I sat up onto my elbows and listened, trying to make out what was being said. Before I could determine what was being yelled, I was startled by a quick slapping at the front of my tent. Worming my way out of my sleeping bag, I unzipped my tent flap and poked my head outside, shivering at the cold morning air. I saw Ben and Sean in front of their tents, pulling on their hiking boots. "Get your clothes on, man," Ben said as he saw me. "What's going on?" "A kid's missing. Probably wandered off last night," answered Sean, cinching his bootlaces tight and standing up. I turned back into the tent and started getting dressed. My heart sank as I heard the shouts become more abundant as other campers joined in, calling out the child's name. Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. I hoped that she was just in the shower room or had woken up early to go to the playground nearby, but I couldn't help but think of the countless stories I'd heard of kids being abducted or disappearing into the woods, only for their bodies to be found miles away or not at all. Ben and Sean were already a few campsites down from ours and calling out to the woodline when I came out of my tent. I hurriedly tied my boots and joined them. "Do we know what she looks like?" I asked. Brown-haired, blue-eyed, 8-year-old girl named Sarah, came a voice from behind us. I turned to see a college-aged guy walking towards us ahead of another guy and a girl who were around the same age, and wearing packs. Any idea which way she went? Sean asked. No. Her dad said she was asleep in her tent when he went to bed around 11 last night, and was gone when they woke up about 30 minutes ago. Said her shoes and flashlight were missing. I'm guessing they've already checked the bathrooms? I asked, looking towards the brick structure at the center of the campground. Yeah, we checked, said the girl. No luck. Listen, we're going to head to the trailhead to look, while the rangers get the main search organized. I asked them, and they gave us the go-ahead. Do you guys want to help out? The first guy asked. For sure, Ben said, looking to me and Sean as we nodded in agreement. We'll grab our packs and meet you there in 5. We made it, back to our site, and threw some essentials in our packs. I realized that I had left my water bottle in my car, but Sean, being the prepper that he is, gave me a spare. Once packed, we strapped on our packs and headed towards the trailhead, leaving our camp set up, since it was clear our trip had been delayed. The shouts had tapered off as people began to gather around a park ranger at the center of the camp area. Walking towards the trailhead, we heard sobs coming from a campsite just off the path. A park ranger was sitting beside a woman who could only be Sarah's mother, crying into a pink pillow in the shape of a unicorn, while a deputy stood, attempting to speak to the girl's frantic father. We glanced at each other as we moved past the heartbreaking scene. The expressions on each of our faces were of sorrow-tinted determination. James, Kristen, and Paul were the names of our new companions. They were each outdoorsy types like we were, and were just as well equipped. We met at the trailhead just outside of the camp area and gathered around the large wooden map and formulated a plan. There were several off-shooting trails which snaked through the valley. Main Street was the 8-mile circular trail which returned to the trailhead and connected to the Ouachita Trail at the top. Baker's Falls was a cut-back trail which led to a waterfall 4 miles from the trailhead, and Vista Trail led up the mountain 5 miles to the north. We decided that it would be best to split into groups of 2 in order to hit each trail while staying as safe as possible. Paul and Kristen volunteered to take the Vista Trail. Sean and James decided to take Baker's Falls, leaving Ben and me to take Main Street. It was agreed that we would meet at the trailhead in 7 hours, giving us time to be thorough with our searches and be back before nightfall. We knew cell service would be spotty, if not altogether non-existent, but we exchanged numbers on the off chance we needed to contact each other and ensured we each had the ranger's station's number. When we set off, Paul and Kristen headed north at the split and began their arduous trek up the side of the mountain, while the rest of us hiked east towards Baker's Falls. We didn't talk much, aside from occasionally calling out for Sarah. We were afraid that by making too much noise, we might miss hearing her, and didn't want to distract each other and miss any sign of her. Just before noon, we arrived at the split for Baker's Falls. Sean and James headed down the mountain while Ben and I continued on Main Street. It was a nice day, given the circumstances. If it were any other time, I would have been greatly enjoying myself, taking in the cool air and absorbing the majestic scenery. But for obvious reasons, I didn't pay any of that much mind. A while, James and Sean's echoing calls faded away as we made our way towards the intersection with the main trail. We took our time, listening intently between each call-out. The trail began to turn north up the mountain at a sharper angle, slowing us down quite a bit. It was fairly taxing, and I found myself calling out less as I began to run out of breath. It had been a while since I had last hiked with a pack. I noticed Ben starting to struggle as well, so I suggested we take a break. After all, we had been going non-stop for several miles at this point. We found a shaded spot next to an outcropping of rocks next to the trail, took off our packs, and pulled out some snacks. We sat silently, eating and listening between deafening bites of granola. At first it sounded like a bird. In the distance behind us, a ways off the trail, I heard a shrill cry. I stopped chewing and tapped Ben. "Listen, you hear that?" After a moment it echoed again, a muffled cry that was almost certainly that of a child. We both jumped to our feet and called out, "Sarah!" The cry responded. "Shit! She's up there!" Ben cried, as we both made our way around the outcropping, leaving our packs where they sat. "Sarah, keep making noise. We're coming!" I yelled. The cries became clearer as we trudged our way up the mountain off the trail, slipping on loose rocks and sticks. We were getting close. Ahead of us we saw what appeared to be an opening on a small plateau through the trees. The vegetation began to thin out, and the ground became saturated with flatty, rough gray stones, which were much different than those that we had seen so far. As we made our way to the opening, it became evident that the crying was that of a little girl. The trees gave way to a large glade of gray stones, no trees or plants in sight. "Sarah, where are you?" Ben called, straining to catch his breath. "Down here!" A small voice squeaked from somewhere in the glade. In the middle of the opening was a small rise in the stones. Once we were about 15 feet away, I saw that it was the raised lip of a large hole, about 7 feet across, and blacker than night, a short way down. "Jesus. Sarah, are you in there?" I called down into the abyss. "Yes," she replied through her sobs. Her voice echoed up towards us. She was a long way down. "Are you hurt?" I can't stand up," she cried. "Damn it. Ben, did you put any rope in your pack before we left?" "No, did you?" "No." "Sarah, are you bleeding?" "I don't think so." She said weakly, "It's too dangerous to try and climb down there. These rocks could come loose and cave the whole thing in," said Ben, testing the edge of the pit. I pulled my phone from my pocket and unlocked the screen, but found there was no service. Ben did the same and shook his head. "Ben, get back to the trail and get help. I'll stay here with her." "All right, I'll be back," he said before running back into the trees. "Just hang tight, Sarah. We're getting you some help." Silence fell over the glade as Ben's footfalls faded into the distance. Sarah, her sobbing had stopped, and several seconds passed before she made another sound. "Please, come and get me." Her voice was weak and pleading. "It's really dark in here." I turned my phone light on and held it into the opening. It illuminated a few feet down, but no further. I still couldn't see her. "I promise we're going to get you out. It's not safe to come to you right now. I don't have the tools, and I don't want you to get hurt any more than you already are." I knew she must have been scared, and I felt horrible that she had to stay in that hole a second longer. I thought about dropping my phone to her for light, or to play a game, but it might break and be of no use to either of us. I thought about my pack and hated myself for leaving it on the trail. I had a headlamp in the front pocket, and some paracord I could lower it down to her with. Sarah, I have a flashlight and some snacks in my backpack on the trail. I'm going to go and... Don't. Leave me, she screamed. It was a loud, tormented, almost angry scream. Okay. I won't go anywhere. Silence returned to the glade. Looking at the opening and the rocks surrounding it, I noticed something odd. The rim of the pit was nearly a perfect circle. It definitely wasn't a natural formation. The rocks appeared almost as though they had been deliberately stacked. Sarah, how did you get in there? I fell. Did you fall from up here? Or is there another way in somewhere? There was no response for a moment. I slipped and fell from up there. There was no sign of collapse on any side of the pit. I thought that maybe it was a stable structure after all. I can't climb out. My leg hurts really bad. She groaned. Can you please come down here with me? I'm really scared. I really considered it, even if the structure was stable enough to hold my weight without collapsing. The hole was too wide for me to brace against the sides, and it would take a skilled rock climber to safely climb down, with as small as the cracks and ridges of the walls were. I really wish I could, but it wouldn't be safe for either of us. There was no response. Are you thirsty? I asked, remembering the water bottle I had clipped to my belt. Yes. I unclipped the bottle and held it at the side of the opening. Sarah, can you see me? Uh-huh. Good. I need you to move as far as you can against the wall. I'm going to drop this bottle down to you, okay? Okay. I listened for movement but heard nothing. Sarah, can you move against the wall? I did. I paused for a moment. Sarah, are you sure? This is kind of heavy, and I moved, she screamed. Jesus. All right. I mumbled as I dropped the bottle into the inky blackness. I waited for a thump and a cry, or it to clatter against the floor, but no noise came. Did you get it? She didn't respond. Sarah, did you get the water bottle? Still no response. Shit. I knocked her out. I mumbled. Sarah, I got it, she said, breaking the silence. I breathed a sigh of relief. Don't scare me like that. I laughed as I pulled out my phone. Still no service. It had been nearly an hour and a half since Ben left. I did a quick calculation and estimated that it would be at least another hour before he returned with help. I sat next to the edge for a while, letting a sense of relief and accomplishment wash over me. We had done a really good thing here, and I was more than happy to sacrifice a hiking trip to help find this girl. I sat for a while longer, waiting for the sound of the cavalry rushing up the hillside, but was met with a blood-curdling scream from the pit. Shit. Sarah. What is it? Peter, there's something in here with me. Another scream. What is it? Sarah. What is it? I don't know. Please come down here. Please. Please. Sarah, I'm gonna drop my phone down. To you. Use the light and see what it is, okay? She continued screaming. I pulled my boot off and removed my sock, turned the light on my phone, and slid it inside, layering the sock on it for more cushion. I'm dropping the phone. Try and grab it. I yelled over her screams as I let the phone fall. I watched as the dim glow of the light through the sock disappeared into the darkness. A few moments later, the screaming stopped. Sarah, did you get the light? What was it? Again, nothing. Sarah, answer me, please. I got it, she said calmly. Is the light on? I don't see anything." There was a long pause. It broke. "Oh, okay, that's fine. But you're all right now. Please just come down here, Peter," she said in a whimper. "I'm really sorry, but I told you it's not Sa." I froze. "Sarah, how do you know my name?" There was no answer for a while. "Answer. Me, Sarah. How do you know my name?" "It's on your bottle, silly," she giggled. "That's not my bottle. Say, a friend let me borrow it." There was no way she could have known my name. At the very least, my full first name. I didn't think Ben had called me by name in the short time he was there, and even if he did, he calls me Pete. "Come down here," she said in a raspy whisper. "No, come down here." I stood and started to back away from the pit. Down here, down here. "Help, help me," the voice screamed, changing pitches. I stumbled back and fell onto the rocks as I heard what sounded like bone scraping against stone from within the pit. "Down here, help, here." The voice no longer resembled that of a child's, no longer that of a human. I stood and ran. I ran as fast as I could down the side of the mountain as unearthly screams bellowed from behind me. I fell again, this time rolling forward, striking my hip against a stump, sending a wave of dull pain through my body. I stood and ran as best I could, back to the way I had come. I wasn't sure where I came out on the trail, but I knew which way the trailhead was. I ran until I couldn't hear the screams, and kept running until I met a ranger coming up the mountain towards me at a jog. "No, don't go up there," I shouted breathlessly. "Calm down, you're safe." "Are you hurt?" he asked. "I'll be all right, but you can't go up there. That's not Sarah. I don't." "It's all right. Sarah's safe. Your partners found her halfway up Vista Trail." He took me by the shoulders and started guiding me down the mountain. "Where's Ben? Did he make it down?" "Yeah. Ben and the rest of your crew are down at the campsite, waiting for you. Y'all did a good job. Really appreciate your help." We walked for a while before I was able to calm myself. "What is that glade up there, that pit? What the fuck is in it?" He sighed and gave me a quick glance. "Nothing that you gotta worry about," he said, with an uneasy smile. We made it back to the camping area, and I met up with Ben and Sean, who both understandably had a few questions. However, I didn't have time to answer them since the rangers were shutting down the camping area and the trails, and we had to leave. We packed up our things and loaded my car just as they were closing the gates. On the way back to Ben's car, I told them what happened at the glade. Ben said the ranger freaked out when he told him what we had found, and told him to stay at the campsite until he came back with me. Apparently, when Kristen and Paul found Sarah, she told them her mom was calling her from the woods when she went to the bathroom that night. So she followed her voice up the trail but got lost. Sean thinks, to this day, that we're pulling some wild prank on him. But Ben and I know what we heard, what we saw. I haven't gone hiking since, and I don't think I will for a while. Story number 7. I know this title seems dumb and weird, but I need help because I saw it last night. I was minding my own business cooking when a movie I was watching finished. It autoplayed to a man standing in a room with a light beaming down, with his back facing towards the camera. He was like that for a minute or longer. He then adjusted himself and turned around to face the camera. He was wearing a nice suit and tie with shaggy hair. You just couldn't see his face. No, it wasn't like he was missing his face. You could see his lips. It was the lighting of the room. It was like a spotlight for a stage. He then began to speak. I couldn't remember most of it, for it just sounded like rambling. He would start on one subject, and then immediately jump to the next. It was kinda disorienting. I was gonna shut it off when he started another ramble. I remember seeing her for the first time. She was so perfect. I thought right then and there she would be my home. Someone I couldn't live without. A smile of delight grew on his face. The first few interactions were bumping into each other. We had been working at the same place. She was just starting, and I had been there for a while. Her smile was like magic. I would intentionally find ways for me to bump into her. She was my little way into heaven. He was rubbing his ring finger. It took a while to convince her to go on a date with me. She was worried about how it would affect work, how they would look at us, normal little things. When we did go, I took her to this lavish place downtown. It was beautiful and perfect. I knew she would love it. She did. She was absolutely smitten. I could see it on her face and how she did her little, excited dance. We ordered some basic fancy food like steak and lobster. The shit that makes a dent in the pocket. I would do it all for her, though. When we got done at the restaurant, I took her stargazing. I had found this perfect place not too far from the city. It was a place perfect for a first kiss. He stumbled with his words for a second. She was so pretty. I was staring at her more than the stars. I think she knew but didn't care. She looked at me at one point, and all I could stare at were her lips. They called me. Now maybe I was a little all over and wine drunk, but I went for it. Something sober me wouldn't have done. The more I think back on it, I lucked out. She kissed me back, and from there, it was history. The excitement growing in his voice was like a little kid getting a toy. We would go on more dates, get more daring at the workplace. Finally, we decided to go home and have sex. It felt like heaven. I had never felt anything better. The euphoria on his face was growing exponentially at this point. It wasn't long, though. I had forgotten one thing, one simple thing. My wife hadn't worked today and was only dropping the kids off for school. You could see the red in her eyes before she swung the axe. It hit me first and went straight through the back of my skull. I didn't feel the pain. I was dead on the spot. The lady, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. They say they are still finding pieces of her all over the neighborhood. He chuckled at that remark. My wife turned herself in only after drowning our son, saying that was her only crime. They found me a couple of days afterwards, head off and penis cut off. I think that being her last fuck you to me. He paused for a moment before dropping the smile. September 4th, 2025, 8 o'clock in the morning, he said, before the TV cut back to some old film. I was confused, to say the least. It only got worse when I woke up the next morning to the work group chat saying the boss had been killed, that his wife went crazy or something. Not all the details are known, except that there are 2 more victims, one being their child and the other being unknown. I just need to know if I was the only one to see it. Thank you for your time. You survived, for now, but the shadows aren't done with you yet. If this story gave you chills, like the video, share it with someone who dares to watch and comment your thoughts, especially if you're watching in the dark. Subscribe to Spectral Shadows, where fear never sleeps, and the next nightmare is always waiting. We'll be watching.